Alright, welcome back to the EngineerKit series. I'm really excited about this series because it's everything I've been wanting to do on this channel, and that is to build out a T-shaped set of skills where not only do I have my specialty with internet topics such as TCP/IP, just the CCNA stuff all the way up through the CCNP, which I held for a number of years, and on top of that I have 8 years of experience in that. And I've actually done some programming. So when it comes to a general set of skills for a software developer or a programmer, I have that in my specialty as well. So the goal that I've been wanting to do for a long time is to, in addition to those really niche skills that really go far in depth, I want to have more broader skills that are across many different niches, but not in a very far depth. So that's the T-shaped skills, and I actually think there's a really good article on that I would like to share. So I'm a part of this nonprofit. I give free mentorship, which might be, as I said, there's a lot of really exciting things that could be coming soon on this channel, so definitely stay tuned. But if we take a look at the blog, and I'll include this in the link, we can find one about T-shaped skills. So it's not in the blog. I believe it's... here it is. So I will include this in the link. This is a really good explanation. I don't think it's that complicated, but we can see you want your general skills to be wide and you want your specialist skills to go deep. So if you can get a CCIE, wow, that's amazing. Look at how deep your skills go. But if all you focus on is that and you just have that one T, your choice of employers, your choice of projects is going to be more limited. So this is a great article and I will include it in the description. But for now, I'm going to move on to the first module of EngineerKit, and this is going to be the infrastructure module. Alright, so with this module, you'll learn how to use cloud providers to orchestrate computing resources and create a scalable and resilient platform for your product. The first topic will be cloud providers. With this topic, you'll learn about cloud computing and the wide range of services an application can use with this topic. The learning outcomes will be describing infrastructure as a service, describing platform as a service, describing software as a service. We'll be able to list some typical cloud providers, list some commonly used services from cloud providers, and compare using cloud computing with on-premise computing. So I kind of feel like, honestly, I know more of this than I thought I did. But anyway, here's the resources we're going to be using. So the first resource is a cloud guru. So let's take a look at that. So this is a cloud certification. It looks like there's possibly some kind of training associated with this. If it's free like the LPIC, then that'd be amazing, but it looks like there is some payment required. The next resource is AWS, which I've discussed a lot of times on this channel. I've actually read a book that went through IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, and there's whole chapters that I'm reading out loud from that book that describe it in detail. So for me, this will be a review, but this might be new for someone else. But here's AWS. So AWS is probably the most widely known and used cloud computing platform. So certs and AWS are definitely going to go a long ways. And I've discussed that multiple times on the channel too. Going for an expert level cert in Juniper, going through whether or not to recert my CCNP with Cisco when the whole program has changed and it's not just a matter of validating existing knowledge anymore, it's a matter of learning a large amount of new content. well, if I want to learn a large amount of new content, do I want that to be specific to Cisco, or do I want to learn new content that adds to my breadth instead of my depth? So the decision I've come to is to add to my breadth instead of my depth. So let's keep going with this. So the next tool will be Azure. So Azure is just like AWS, except for through a different company. It's not just like it, there's of course different things, but certs in Azure will go a long ways as well. The next resource is DigitalOcean. And I believe I've discussed DigitalOcean a few times on this channel. There are some tools on it, but these are no stranger to this channel for sure, but hopefully we'll be narrowing in on them a bit further now. So the next one is Google Cloud Platform. I'm going to put this next to these because this is another one we discussed on this channel. This is GCP, you commonly hear it referred to as, and it's just another cloud service offering through a major technology corporation. And I'm sure there's a lot of ones that aren't from these big three as well, but these are the ones we'll be focusing on. And these are the ones I'll be focusing on when it comes to getting a cert. I believe at this point that the best cert track for me when it comes to one of these three is probably AWS, but the best cert is the one you can get and the one that directly really leads to more opportunities. Having more of a people-based mindset, I think, will get you further in IT. So the mindset that I'm just going to get this cert even though I don't know anyone else who has it, or I don't know any employers that are going to get it, well, you're not really thinking about the person too much. You're just thinking about the cert itself. So really you need to be thinking about who is this cert for, what kind of people want this cert. And kind of a sad truth in the industry is certs serve as shelling points. So it's not so much in some cases about what you actually learn from the cert. It's, do people know the set of it, it's like, can people recognize your accomplishments? So even though perhaps this is the case with the LPIC, a cert may be more comprehensive, may be distribution neutral, maybe go into more depth, and then the whole issue of hands-on versus multiple choice, memorizing some things can be advantageous. So perhaps the LPIC might be the better choice, and then for a while I thought that was the case. But who is this cert for? It's for employers, it's for validating a set of skills that you have, and if nobody knows or respects the validation, then it's, no matter how much knowledge you get, how much extra knowledge you get, it's you're doing something that's not for anyone. So you're not tapping into a demand for your skills. All right, so the next resource is Kubernetes, explained in 100 seconds. I like that time, 100 seconds. That's good. So might be looking at that one first. So, okay, and then the next one is the Kubernetes starter kit. And then, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is just a GitHub repo, so that's good. A lot of this is open source, so the other great thing about doing this and focusing on my breadth rather than my depth at this point is breadth extends into things like open source, which philosophically is stuff I really like. I like everyone having a fair chance, and I like being able to use the knowledge that you have and producing things that people that directly benefit people and that they can use without having to, like, I mean, I understand markets, the economy, and all that, but to some extent, privileged access can go too far, in my opinion. So, having open source alternatives is something that I really philosophically agree with. So, just the open source community in general, having communal developments, those sorts of things, drawing contributions from whoever makes them, regardless of if they're hired, regardless of who they are. It's just the quality outcome of the work, even if it's done at home. That's the kind of stuff I value a lot. So this is great. Going on to the next one. So this is the Kubernetes starter kit one. It's just a free and open GitHub repo, so that's a great resource. But so after that, the next resource is the top 5 AWS services explained in 10 minutes. That looks like a great resource. Then there's the what is Kubernetes, and it's a whole video series, it looks like. So, yep, so here's the playlist. So that looks good. Alright, and then after that, we're going to have some real exercises, which will be virtual machine provisioning. Alright, so the instructions are a bit unclear, so hopefully I don't get something caught in something else, but the way I interpret this is you just go through each of the resources and do what you can in each of the resources. There are some lower hanging fruit resources, such as just a 100-second video, which might be a better place to start. And then there are resources where if you want to extend your depth, you can go through these resources. So the great example would be AWS, Azure, or GCP. You can go basically as far as you want in depth, all the way up to the equivalent of what would be the CCIE and Cisco, by earning certs. But for now, I'm just going to tackle the shortest resources. So I will start with this 100 seconds video. Alright, so starting now.
Kubernetes, a tool for managing and automating containerized workloads in the cloud. Imagine you have an orchestra. Think of each individual musician as a Docker container. To create beautiful music, we need a conductor to manage the musicians and set the tempo. Now imagine the conductor as Kubernetes and the orchestra as an app like Robinhood. When the markets are closed, an app like Robinhood isn't doing much, but when they open, it needs to fulfill millions of trades for overpriced stocks like Tesla and Shopify. Kubernetes is the tool that orchestrates the infrastructure to handle the changing workload. It can scale containers across multiple machines, and if one fails, it knows how to replace it with a new one. A system deployed on Kubernetes is known as a cluster. The brain of the operation is known as the control plane. It exposes an API server that can handle both internal and external requests to manage the cluster. It also contains its own key value database called etcd, used to store important information about running the cluster. What it's managing is one or more worker machines called nodes. When you hear node, think of a machine. Each node is running something called a kubelet, which is a tiny application that runs on the machine to communicate back with the main control plane mothership. Inside of each node, we have multiple pods, which is the smallest deployable unit in Kubernetes. When you hear pod, think of a pod of whales or containers running together. As the workload increases, Kubernetes can automatically scale horizontally by adding more nodes to the cluster. In the process, it takes care of complicated things like networking, secret management, persistent storage, and so on. It's designed for high availability, and one way it achieves that is by maintaining a replica set, which is just a set of running pods or containers ready to go at any given time. As a developer, you define objects in YAML that describe the desired state of your cluster. For example, we might have an Nginx deployment that has a replica set with 3 pods. In the spec field, we can define exactly how it should behave, like its containers, volumes, ports, and so on. You can then take this configuration and use it to provision and scale containers automatically, and ensure that they're always up and running and healthy. This has been Kubernetes in 100 seconds. Like and subscribe for more, and you can support my work by sponsoring me on GitHub or by becoming a pro member at Fireship.io for even more content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Okay, so that was a short video, but it was very dense. A lot of it kind of went over my head. I'm going to make sure that I did like and subscribe because
Kubernetes.
That's just, yeah, so I'm liking and subscribing to that video, and I'm going to go back to here. And now, one thing I like to do, I actually tutored somebody, and when I was in 2-year college that was having trouble getting all their assignments done. And one thing I found that really, really helped is just keeping good track of what you have done and what you don't, because you could get into this issue where you're focusing so much on one assignment, but you forget that you have 10 assignments to do. So you spend all your time on the one assignment and now you have no time for the other assignments. So you need to get to a state where it's not perfect. You're probably not going to get full credit. C's and D's get degrees, but you'll get more credit for completing each assignment than you would for just completing one at a very high level. The threshold for even an A or a B, I think in some cases are lower than people think. And when it comes to passing the class and overall getting a good grade, the completion of all the assignments, I believe, is more important than the completion of one assignment, even if that one assignment is completed in a very high level. So that's what I like to do. So I'm going to go to my repositories. I actually already did this. Yeah, so I made a fork. You can see here it says Graham's EngineerKit, and it's a fork from the original EngineerKit. So we learned a bit about forks from the Automate Your Network series. Got to be careful not to modify the repo it's forked from, but this repo will be totally fine to modify. So what I'm going to do now is open this up in Visual Studio Code, and we can see that my branch is ahead, which is good. If it were ahead the other way, that would mean that there were changes to the original repo that I wouldn't get through my run through of it. But I do have commits ahead. That's the way I want it to be. And if I want, I can actually sync over to the fork and make some corrections. But these are just my personal notes for as I'm going through this, so I won't be doing that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is open up in Visual Studio Code this fork that I have of the original repo. Okay, and it looks like I actually don't have that, so I'm going to pull it down. So to do that, I would open Visual Studio Code, and then I would choose an area on my computer where I want it to exist. And I would like it to exist actually in my WASL, Windows Subs. I would like it to exist here. So I'm going to do PAWD, and we can see if I do cat OS release. So this is my Windows subsystem for Linux. This is where I want the repo. Alright, and then this is my repo, which is a fork. So I can make all the updates I want and it won't be disruptive in any way. Alright, so now we can see the repos that I have. I also have this Go repo. I'm not sure what this is. Just get rid of it. Oh. Alright, I didn't want that repo to be there, so now it is not there. So I'm going to move into here and then open a instance of Visual Studio Code so that the Explorer is anchored around there, and then any version control will show up. Another thing you can do that's kind of cool is you can open it before your repo, and then if you have multiple repos, all of them will show up in the version control. So you can see I did that here. If we go, this is a tangent, but if we go into Agile Institute and do an ls, you can see we've got 3 repos in a virtual environment. So the virtual environment is added to the git ignore, and then no, here's the thing. So the virtual environment doesn't even have to belong to the git ignore now, because each of these repos have their own version control, and the virtual environment is outside of it. So I can install the requirements for all three of the repos in this one virtual environment that isn't even a part of any of the repos. And we can see they all show up here in my source control tracker. But that's aside from the point. And that might be overcomplicating things. So let's move into here and then open it up. Alright, so now we've got the same thing. So let's go to the module that we're working on. It's going to be modules, and we're working on the infrastructure module. Alright, and then here's all the resources and the tools. So let's use that syntax that I like to do when it comes to accomplishing things. So the syntax is not done, : and we'll do that for everything. All right, and then when I finish something, what I like to do is just remove the not. So like if I would finish this, then I would remove that to done, and it would say done. So I like doing that. That's what works for me. So let's stage that and then commit that. So we're going to say working through cloud providers topic. Alright, and then I can finish it. I can say finished blank. And what I can even do is make my notes about what I've learned in the commit message. Commit message here is restricted, but I can make a longer one in the CLI. Alright, so I actually would, I think, like to take some notes about this. Oh, it's doing the thing. It's doing a thing where the tab key doesn't work as the tab key. It moves to a different, Oh, that's so frustrating. And the thing is, like, that's what that option is. Tab key moves focus. Like, it's moving the focus. But no matter how I toggle it, it doesn't change the behavior. Like, that's what the option does, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter. So it's Control M. Let's change it to Control N instead, lowercase n. Or, I don't know. I just want this to go away. Alright, so I can't use the tab key for some reason. Let me try talking to the AI about this, because this is one of the things that just really frustrates me. Okay, for some reason, just out of the blue, I can't use the tab key in my Visual Studio Code. It just switches between regions and panes in Visual Studio Code, and it doesn't, like panes, like window panes, P-A-N-E-S. You know what I'm talking about? I think this is clear, right? Ask me if this isn't clear. But anyway, what it does is it switches between these areas, and I can't actually send a tab to a file or the terminal or anywhere in the actual things I'm editing, because the tab key doesn't work that way. How do I reconfigure it so that it works the way I want it to? Okay, and none of that worked, and I lost everything, all my prompt. So, alright, that's just the name of the game. I can ask it again. So the tab key in Visual Studio Code, it does not work. What it does is it switches windows and it switches window panes, so panes, it switches regions within VS Code, and it does not actually send tab characters anywhere, not to the editor nor to the terminal. How can I make it so that the tab key does not switch windows or window panes or areas in Visual Studio Code? I do not need that feature at all. If I want to switch, I just use my mouse.
It sounds like the tab key behavior in Visual Studio Code, VS Code, has been customized and is not behaving as expected.
Okay.
By default, pressing the tab key should insert a tab character in the editor or the terminal.
You know what I'm gonna do? This is frustrating enough for me. I'm gonna delete. I'm gonna uninstall Visual Studio Code, I think, and then try reinstalling it, because this is a deal breaker for me. I have to be able to use that tab key. Okay, so I've got everything pushed up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna close Visual Studio Code, and then I'm gonna type in Visual Studio Code, and I'm gonna click uninstall. Alright, here it is. Okay, so I'm running Visual Studio Code in WSL2 as well. What my plan is now is just to uninstall it completely from everywhere on my system and then reinstall it, and hopefully that tab behavior will be fixed. Do I need to do something special to uninstall it from WSL, or will the uninstaller take care of that for me?
After you have removed the server components, you can uninstall Visual Studio Code from your Windows machine using the usual method for uninstalling programs on Windows. Once you have uninstalled Visual Studio Code from both your Windows machine and WSL2, you can reinstall it and hopefully the tab behavior will be fixed.
Okay, so it looks like there is some custom settings or something that it doesn't make sense to get rid of. Okay, so Visual Studio is now nowhere on my system. If I type in Visual Studio, we can see we do have an installer, which is probably good because, yeah, so, and then let me get rid of this. Alright, so now it's time to use the installer. I'm just going to download a new one. There might be a new version or whatever. So here's the free. Now this is Visual Studio, comprehensive IDE. Okay, but this is what I want here. So I'm going to get the user installer. Alright, so yeah, I don't already have that. The internet is not the fastest, but it's small enough. Alright, I accept the agreement that my firstborn child will be slaughtered by this company unless I smear lamb's blood over the door of my house. If it's an apartment, I don't know what happens, but I guess I'll go back and review it later. Okay, so here's some other ones. So add open with code option to the context, add open with code option to the Explorer directory. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that because, yeah. Don't need a desktop item. Launching Visual Studio Code. Alright, let's test out that tab key now. And the tab key still does the same thing. So, let me try. It might be on my keyboard. Maybe because I have scroll lock entered. Now, I guess I'll try turning my keyboard off and on again. No, same thing. Wow. Okay. I guess we're doing this. This is the way it has to happen. I can't use my tab key. What if I change numlock? Will that change it? Nope. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is hit the function key on my keyboard and try it. Okay, didn't work, so I'll try it with the function key held down. Didn't work. Now what I'll try is going through each of the options with the function key held down. So I mean, some of these are like to reboot the PC, lock the PC. Yeah, I don't think the problem is my keyboard. I think the problem is within Visual Studio itself. So and one thing that is very strange to me is that it did save this when I did that up. So let me ask the AI. So when I uninstalled Visual Studio Code and then I reinstalled it, it just pulled up what I had pulled up before. I wanted to completely uninstall every aspect of it on my system because there's some malicious settings set up that don't allow me to use the tab key. So how do I completely uninstall everything, including all of the custom configurations or whatever it was on there that allowed it to recognize what my prior state of Visual Studio Code was and then bring me back to that state?
If you want to completely remove Visual Studio Code and all of its configuration files, you need to delete both the application itself and the user data folder where settings, extensions, and other configuration data are stored. Here's how you can do that on a Windows machine. Uninstall Visual Studio Code using the usual method for uninstalling programs on Windows. Delete the user data folder. By default, it is located at C /users /appdata /roaming /code. You can navigate to this folder using File Explorer and delete it. Delete the extensions folder. By default, it is located at C /users vscode /extensions. You can navigate to this folder using File Explorer and delete it. After you have completed these steps, you should have completely removed Visual Studio Code and all of its configuration files from your machine. If you also have the remote WSL extension installed and have used Visual Studio Code with WSL2, you will also need to remove the server components that were installed in WSL2. You can do this by following these steps. Open a terminal in WSL2. Run the following command to remove the server components. After you have completed these steps, you should have completely removed Visual Studio Code and all of its configuration files from both your Windows machine and WSL2. You can then reinstall Visual Studio Code, and it should be a clean install without any of your previous settings or extensions.
Okay, yeah, I want the extensions to go away as well. Just if I need it, I want to reinstall it. If I don't need it, it's gotta go. Yes, everything's gotta go. Yes, please. Alright, so I think that's done. Oh, yeah, there we go. So that's done. That might be what was it. But it looks like there's some more things here that I need to do. So let's do those. I just want everything wiped out. I want to be able to use the tab key again. And I can't imagine that by default there would be no possibility to use the tab key. Alright, so here it is. So we're going to remove the whole thing. Okay, so it's empty. It doesn't look like it was removed, but as long as it's empty, that's probably fine. So the next one we're going to do is go into .vs Code. And extensions. Alright, so the folder still exists, but it's now empty, so... Oh, it's not empty, so... Okay, so let's delete everything. Okay, so there's a lot in here. These are all folders, I believe. Yeah, these are all, so let's go in Bash and do it in Bash. You can see as well in doing this how much easier things are in Bash. Okay, a lot of things installed on my system, but I need that tab key back. And this will clear up some stuff that I haven't been using at all. Alright, so one of the things I can do is go and read more of yeah, knock off another one of the materials. So right now, okay, so right now I'm just trying to update where I've been. Okay, so now, okay, so here we go. So sudo, and then this is cool. So so remember this. Look at what I learned from the LPIC. That's so cool. So if I do jobs now, you can see we've got this in the background. If I do ls or cd.vs geocode, okay, it's still in there. It's still in there. So if we do jobs, now we do have a stopped job here. Let's do a sudo echo test. Okay, so now that I have Alright, I'm gonna feed this into the AI. I'm not sure what's going on here.
It seems like you are trying to delete the VS Code folder, but you are encountering permission issues. The error message permission denied suggests that you do not have the necessary permissions to delete the folder or some of its contents. Here are a few things you can try to resolve the issue. Check the ownership and permissions of the VS Code folder and its contents by running the following command. This will show you the owner and the permissions of the folder and its contents. If the folder or some of its contents are owned by another user, you can change the ownership of the folder and its contents to your user by running the following command. If the folder or some of its contents have restricted permissions, you can change the permissions of the folder and its contents to give yourself write access by running the following command. After you have changed the ownership and permissions of the folder, you should be able to delete it by running the following command. Alternatively, you can use sudo to delete the folder. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions.
Okay, still can't. So usually when this is the case, it's because that is open somewhere else. So I would bet if I did an exit, right, I can't delete it because we can see that I'm in it here. So if I would get out of that folder and then open it, then I'll be able to delete it. So that can be confusing, but it's really not that difficult. Okay, so now the next one is so that's in WSL itself. So now roaming code. So let's go into the roaming. Okay, there we go. And then we'll go into roaming. Alright, and now we're going to delete code. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. And then the wassail already did this one, I believe, but I'll do it one more time. Alright, and now I can hopefully install it again, and it won't remember anything that it remembered before. So I'll go to my downloads. This is something that I think a lot of people do, is they'll just download it again. If you already have it downloaded, you can just run the installer again. You don't have to download the installer each time you want to use it. So hopefully this is a neat tip and trick for anyone who wants to save quite a bit of time. I mean, it can be 5-10 minutes to download an installer again when you already have it. So like you can see, you know, even I do this. When it goes like this, that means I already have it and I installed it again. So that can be fine if it's a smaller file, but this file's more than twice as big, so not really a good option for that one. Okay, so now we're from this fresh getting started. Perfect. So we can choose we can even choose the scheme, which is great. So high contrast dark. I don't like the white. That's just bad for my eyes. I like the dark modern. A little bit the high contrast dark is kind of nice. I'm kind of conflicted between high contrast dark and dark mono. Okay, so everything worked perfect. Now I'm setting up the default settings, and I'm conflicted between the color scheme high contrast dark and dark modern. What are the pros and cons of each, and which makes the most sense for me to choose?
The choice between high contrast dark and dark Visual Studio themes in Visual Studio Code largely comes down to personal preference, as well as any specific needs you might have in terms of visual accessibility. High contrast dark. Pros. Provides a higher contrast between text and background, which can make it easier to read text and identify syntax highlighting. This can be beneficial for users with visual impairments or those who prefer a more prominent contrast. Cons. The high contrast might be too stark for some users, and it might feel less visually appealing compared to other themes. Dark, Visual Studio. Pros. Provides a modern and visually appealing appearance with a balanced contrast that is generally comfortable for most users. The colors and contrast are designed to minimize eye strain during extended periods of use. Cons. The contrast is lower compared to the high contrast dark theme, so it might be less suitable for users who require or prefer higher contrast for readability. Ultimately, the best way to decide is to try out both themes and see which one feels more comfortable for you in terms of read.
What is the best theme when it comes to eye strain? And this can be any theme, not just these two.
When it comes to minimizing eye strain, you should look for a theme that has a comfortable contrast level and a color palette that is easy on your eyes. Dark themes are generally considered to be easier on the eyes, especially in low-light environments, as they reduce glare and light intensity. Some popular dark themes that are known for being comfortable and minimizing eye strain are 1. Dark Pro. This theme has a balanced contrast and a modern color palette that is easy on the eyes. Dracula. This theme has a unique color palette with moderate contrast, and it's known for being easy on the eyes. Solarized Dark. This theme has a low contrast color palette designed to be easy on the eyes. Night Owl. This theme has a balanced contrast and a color palette that is designed to be easy on the eyes during late-night coding sessions. Ultimately, the best theme for minimizing eye strain is a personal choice and may vary from person to person. It's recommended to try out different themes and see which one feels the most comfortable for you. Additionally, consider adjusting your monitor's brightness, contrast, and color temperature to further minimize eye strain.
Alright, yeah, the default one should be fine. So, there we go. Let's go on to the next section. Oh. I think I was meant to go to mark done. Oh, shoot. Oh, here's... Okay, perfect, perfect. So, we're going to mark this one. Oh. Now, where did it go? Okay, well, I wanted to go through each. You know what? Screw this. I never want to see it again. Go away. Okay, so now let's go to yeah, so Wassel, and then let's find a way to try to make this the default. Select default profile, and the default profile is going to be Wassel. Perfect. So now if I open a new terminal, it'll be Wassel by default. Alright, and now I can go back into the EngineerKit, open it up. Oh, and we don't have code in here, but now I can install it. Okay, so this revision was published using classic confinement. So it might be insecure, but that's okay. Okay, perfect. So now I should be able to do code dot. Okay, so now we've got a okay, so there's better instructions here. So to use Visual Studio Code with the Windows subsystem for Linux, please install Visual Studio Code in Windows and uninstall the Linux version in WASL of Studio Code. You can then use the code command. No. So let's get rid of that. Let's do a uninstall of this. Or remove, whatever it is. Okay, so some key bindings don't go to the terminal by default and are handled by Visual Studio instead. So that was the tab key binding. So I think this is probably where I made my mistake here. So yeah, so and this might be how I made my mistake. I accidentally checked it when instead I just wanted to feed this into the AI, and I wanted to click on this. So now I can't tell if this was checked or not because I clicked on this, and now this is checked, and I don't know if it was checked beforehand. So in Visual Studio, is there a way to see a diff of the settings? I clicked on something and I toggled a setting, I think, but the thing is I can't tell if I toggled the setting or not.
In Visual Studio Code, you can see the differences between your user settings and the default settings by following these steps. Open the command palette with Ctrl plus Shift plus P or CMD plus Shift plus P on Mac. Type Preferences. Open Settings, JSON, and select it from the drop-down menu. This will open your user settings file. This file contains all the settings that you have customized. Open the command palette again and type Preferences. Open Default Settings, JSON, and select it from the drop-down menu. This will open the default settings file. This file contains all the default settings for Visual Studio Code. Compare the two files side by side to see the differences between your user settings and the default settings. Alternatively, you can use the Settings UI to compare your settings with the default settings. To do this, follow these steps. Open the command palette with Ctrl plus Shift plus P or CMD plus Shift plus P on Mac. Type Preferences. Open Settings, UI, and select it from the drop-down menu. This will open the Settings UI, where you can search for the setting you are interested in. When you click on a setting, it will show you the current value of the setting and the default value of the setting. If the current value is different from the default value, it means you have customized the setting. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions.
It did not help in any way possible. Was this checked or not? I guess I can review the video, but I don't know if this was checked or not. I know that if I click it, it will uncheck it. Oh, let's just do reset setting. Okay, so it was checked. Perfect. Okay, and we can see we've got some errors in this file. I don't know. Okay, but the thing is, right now what we're working on is what.
You can uninstall a snap package using the remove command followed by the package name. In your case, to uninstall Visual Studio Code, which was installed with the code package name, you can run the following command. This will uninstall Visual Studio Code from your system. The error message you are seeing, incorrect number of tail fields, expected 3 but found 4, appears to be a bug in the snap command itself. It's not something that you are doing wrong. Unfortunately, this means that the standard sudo snap remove code command may not work until the bug is fixed. In the meantime, you can try the following steps as a workaround. Run the sudo snap refresh command to update all of your snap packages to the latest versions. This may also update the snap command itself, which could resolve the bug. Run the sudo snap remove code command again to see if the error persists. If these steps do not work, you may need to wait for a fix from the snap development team. You can also try reaching out to the Snapcraft forum or the Snap GitHub repository for assistance.
I don't like Snap. I'm just gonna say it. Snap never works for me. It just creates situations like this where it's like, what even happened? Oh, there's a change in process? There's no job. There's no... I probably need to do a -A. There's no... Where is the process? I don't see a process for that. Oh, here's snap D. Alright, well, I guess I'll just kill it. Wow, it's still so okay. Shoot. Okay. It doesn't matter. So if I go to Visual Studio Code, wait, yeah, and I do. Let me ask the AI. How do I set up the code command to run in Wassel WSL?
To run Visual Studio Code from your Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL, instance, you can use the code command. Here's how you can set it up. First, ensure that you have Visual Studio Code installed on your Windows machine. Inside WSL, install the Visual Studio Code server with the following command. Start the Visual Studio Code server. This will start the server and print a URL to your terminal. Copy and paste this URL into your web browser to access Visual Studio Code. To make it easier to open Visual Studio Code from the WSL terminal, you can create an alias. Add the following line to your bash or ZSHRC file. After you add this alias, you should be able to open Visual Studio Code from your WSL terminal by simply typing code. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions.
Oh, they didn't make it run in the background. Or with the no hang up command. Alright. So that's installed into my Wassel. I'm tempted to just blast away my whole disk. Because this is really frustrating. What? And now it's... Okay. Yeah, I need to remove that alias somehow. Okay, so that absolutely did not work and made the problem worse. I need to remove the alias somehow now. I need to get rid of this Visual Studio Code server as well. Walk me through how to undo all of those prior steps that you took me through.
I apologize for the inconvenience. Let's go through the steps to undo the changes. Remove the alias. Open your bash or ZSHRC file using a text editor. For example, you can use nano as follows. Find the line that contains the alias you added. Delete this line and save the file. To apply the changes, run the following command. Uninstall Visual Studio Code Server. You can stop the code server process by finding its process ID and then using the kill command. You can find the process ID with the following command. Then, use the kill command to stop the process. Next, you need to remove the code server binary and its associated files. You can find where code server is installed with the following command. Once you know the installation path, you can remove the code server files with the rm command. After completing these steps, you should have successfully removed the alias and uninstalled Visual Studio Code Server. Let me know if you have any further questions or need additional assistance.
The alias isn't in that file. But the alias is still working. So where else could the alias be if it's not in that file? Alias, ALIAS. Where could that be if it's not in .bashrc?
If the alias is not in your bashrc file, it could be in a few other places. Here are some common places to check. ZSHRC. If you are using ZSH, your alias could be defined in this file. Profile or bash_profile, these files are used for login shells and could also contain the alias /etc/bash. Bashrc or /etc/profile, these files are used for system-wide configuration and could contain the alias. You can use the grep command to search for the alias in these files. For example, once you find the file that contains the alias, you can remove it and then run the source command to apply the changes, as described in the previous message.
Well, let me do this. Let me do a grep of the whole system to try to find that alias. So we're gonna go to root. We're gonna do sudo grep. And then we'll grep from here, and then we'll do single quotes. Sure. Yep, and then I think the path comes after. I don't remember. And then we can redirect the standard error. So that's number 2 to dev null. We have to do a -R, actually. Well, let's see what the error message is. There we go. We'll just do a RL to get the file. And then if there's any, you can do the... Alright, so wherever that is on the system, hopefully it will pop up. Not sure what's going on. I might need to use a different syntax here. But the good news is the tab key works. If I go here and I hit tab, I can hit tab as much as I want. And oh no. Let me go into okay, now this is just broken. So if I go into VI, insert mode, there we go. Now I can hit tab as much as I want. Perfect. Alright, so I'm trying to find where this alias is and deleting the alias. And this is why I've said so many times on this channel, IDEs, I don't think makes sense. Just use Notepad++. It's fine. Set the language. You get all the same kind of syntax highlighting and everything. You can do a dark theme. You get everything, and then just in a separate window, set up your terminal so that it's not. Because if I open up a CMD like this and then go to bash, see then I don't even have to use the code command at all. Like if I wanna, I just use the Notepad++ command. Well, I think I'm gonna maybe just stop it for now. This is kind of a bad first video because I'm just stuck in the weeds here on my settings for WASL and for Visual Studio Code, and I really haven't gotten through any of the actual material. But we're at the hour mark already, so yeah, kind of not off to a great start, but that's okay. I'll get this worked out. Hopefully I'll find this. Oh, I might just wipe literally everything, even just the whole partition or the whole disk or something. I don't know, but what I might do is uninstall Windows Subsystem for Linux completely and then just start from there. But yeah, I'm gonna do that either in between camera or in between videos or in another video. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and hopefully in the next video we can get through more of the actual material and not have to just figure out how to get the tab key to work in Visual Studio Code.